they were trying to just sort of keep me awake because he had called the paramedics, the pastor did in the meantime. So they were waiting for them to arrive. And I knew what they were doing. I'm a mom, I'm a nurse, I know. I assess myself. It's like they were trying to keep me conscious. And I could feel it all of a sudden. And it's like sort of I'm getting dizzy and the pastor says, "Child, what is your name?" I'm like, oh my God, I don't know my name. I don't know my name. I have no idea. I did not know who I was. He said, "Do you have family?" I didn't know. How do you not know? I had no identification. I had nothing on me. I didn't have shoes, right? And all of a sudden, I feel my heart, and I can tell, oh my God, it's getting slower, and it's not going to beat anymore. And then guess what? My lungs, they did what they had done before. They'd always gotten to where they were going to shrivel, and I'm like, oh my God, here I go. I'm going to have to jump up and down. And he slammed his fist on his desk. When he looked into my eyes, he said, "Child, I see it in your eyes. Do you believe in God? I know where you're going." And as soon as he said that, there was something in me. I had no energy to this point, and I jumped out of my chair to jump up and down, to breathe, like I had done for so many times, to restart my lungs. But this time, they didn't start. They wouldn't open. And I said, "I believe in God." And when I said that, that is when my soul separated from this shell, this physical body. And so I was raised to believe that when you died, like, I just knew it was going to hurt, because of course it would hurt, because it was painful enough knowing that you're going to be judged, because if you're a sinner, not a winner, which that was me. Like, I messed up so much that it's logically going to hurt when you leave your body. I was terrified of dying. Do you guys know what it felt like to die? Totally opposite of that. So when I took that last breath and I let go, oh my God, I could breathe. Like, it was amazing. It wasn't painful at all. How is that possible? And not only that, it was so amazing because I let go and I go right up to the ceiling. And I'm looking down at this thing, this shell, which I knew was me, but it wasn't really me. This was me up there. And it was so much more than that. That had contained it. It had like stifled me. And while I appreciated it and I admired it, and I started watching this series of events unfolding, and it was the pastor motioning for the ambulance people to come in, and the two people were starting to do the life-saving measures, the IV and the oxygen, and getting me on the gurney. And I'm just thinking, wow, you know what, that's really nice that they're doing that for me. They're so kind. But it's pointless. And I feel really bad. They should go help someone that needs help, because I'm not coming back. I knew, that I was finally alive. It was amazing. And all of a sudden, as I'm having this, realization, I feel something to my right and just above me. And it was this angelic presence. And so we began to communicate. And I knew it was my time, right? And for whatever reason, I'm looking down and I'm watching the pastor and Rodolfo's just, crying. And I said to the angelic presence, can't they come too? I was talking about the pastor and Rodolfo, because I was like, they were so helpful, and I just really wanted to do something nice for them, and I knew where I was going. I could feel it was just going to be awesome. And the angelic presence said, it's not their time. And so I just remember just like wishing them love and letting go. I went into this tunnel, and it was so cool, because you know what? I didn't have to do anything. I just let go. It was the most amazing thing. All of a sudden, when I'm in the tunnel, there's this hook, right? And it goes right here where my rib cage would be, but it wasn't painful. It was just so substantial, and it just pulled. And it was just amazing. It was so exhilarating. It pulled me at this rate. It was supersonic. It was so awesome. And as it's pulling me, I'm being filled with all this love in this tunnel. The whole tunnel is alive in and of itself. It has life. And the interesting thing about the love, I had known this love. It was familiar. It was awesome. And all I had to do is nothing, just be. And it was the most amazing thing, and I'm being pulled by this hook. This connection is what it was. It was so magnificent. If nothing else would have happened to me, and I would have just stayed in the tunnel, I am not kidding you, that would have been more than enough. 1,000 times over. It was so amazing. Felt so awesome. I could have stayed there forever. But that's not what happened. So I get through to almost the clearing of the tunnel, and I'm almost at the end, and I can see something ahead of me. And the angelic presence that had traveled with me this whole time, when we finally got to the end, the angelic presence left. And then I was delivered into the hands of the one that I always knew. Since I was 5 years old, I knew that voice. All those years. The one that created us, God. Delivered into the hands of God. Now you have to understand, I couldn't see God's hands. Like you see my hands here today with your human eyes. I didn't need to, because seeing there is, there's just no human words. It's amazing. God was on my right side. It was like he was hugging me. And as he was holding me, I could feel his unconditional love pouring into every cell of my being. I'd always known this love. I knew where I was. I was home. I was home. And I knew it. There was no doubt in my mind. So here's God and I standing together, and our backs were towards heaven, and we're looking out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm noticing like there's all these galaxies I can see so far in front of me, and amazing stars, right? And as I'm looking at all these beautiful planets and stars, God and I begin to communicate, and the way that God and I communicated was telepathically. So I would think a thought, and as I thought this thought, God would instantly replace it with the answer. And I began to be filled, like speed rate, with all of this knowledge from heaven. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. I'm getting this knowledge, but stars are doing something as I'm getting filled with this knowledge. I'm like, what are they doing? And as soon as I'm paying attention to what the stars are doing, I notice they're lining up and they're making this huge curtain. It was huge, right out in front of us. And it was probably from where I'm at, like God and I were here, and to the very back of the room, the last row of chairs, was where this curtain was lining up with stars. And as it's lining it up, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a curtain. I heard something in my left ear. And it was the whirring sound of a vintage movie projector. That's what we had where I grew up in the middle of nowhere. It was kind of an older movie theater. And so I recognized that noise. I'm like, wow, that sounds like the vintage movie projector. And as I'm having that realization, I see the stars and they start parting. And as they parted, it revealed this huge movie screen, white movie screen. And I'm like, wow, that really looks like a movie screen. And I heard it, and it was like 3, 2, 1. And then it appeared on the movie screen, the life review of Erica McKenzie. And I'm like, oh my God, that's me. And all of a sudden it appeared on the movie screen, the life review of Erica McKenzie. And I'm like, oh my God, that's me. And all of a sudden it appeared on the movie screen was me as a baby the day I was born. And so here's God and I in the galaxy in heaven, and we're at a movie theater, and it's about me, and I'm thinking, oh great, here we go. Well, God and I stood together, and we proceeded to watch all these events in my life from that day that I was born, up until that day that I died. And when I died, I was 31. The events that I saw in this life review, I remember one of the first memories was me losing my first tooth and the tooth fairy coming to visit, right? And there was me in 3rd grade winning the spelling bee and having that accomplishment, which was awesome. And then there was awards like athletic awards, cheerleading awards, awards for the newspaper. When you live in a small town, by the way, you participate in everything, because if you don't, there's not enough people. But it was like all of these milestone events. Graduating from 8th grade, why we had that, I don't know. But anyway, graduating from high school, graduating from college, getting a nursing degree, getting married, having children. These are all wonderful events, right? And as I'm looking at these events on the screen, I'm living it like a human day again. I'm reliving it. And I'm starting to notice these patterns. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. But these are all things that were accomplishments. And God told me, well, this is what is important to mankind. The awards, the achievements, the accolades. And I had appreciation for them. And I remember knowing, gosh, I'm so fortunate to have had this many years to really experience these wonderful accomplishments. We're getting closer to the end, 31 years, and I'm thinking, ooh, wait a minute. I was raised to believe that you're a sinner, not a winner. And I knew I had sinned so much. I had messed up so much that I just all of a sudden had this wave of panic over me, like, it's coming. Because up to this point, it was just a really great feeling, all this love exchange and learning, and it was positive and wonderful. Day I died, 31 years old. I wasn't judged, but I was at the end of my life review. I wasn't judged. How is it possible? I don't know. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh. All of a sudden, something appeared right in front of me. You want to guess what it was? My son? Eyeglasses. Glasses. Okay? Now, I had perfect vision my whole life. Never worn glasses. But I'm going to tell you guys, the ones of you wearing glasses out there, you've never worn a pair of glasses like this. You know why? Because number one, they were the size of a vehicle. And I'm thinking, I knew, because God's already telling me, put them on. And I'm like, really? How? It's impossible. As soon as I thought it was impossible, I felt my hands drawing the glasses near, and sure enough, pulling them onto my face. And do you know, when I got the glasses on, they fit perfectly. And then God said to me, now look. So guess what? When he said that, I'm watching the stars. All of a sudden, they're lining up and making a curtain again. I hear the whirring siren of the projector. 3, 2, 1. Stars part. The life review of Erica McKenzie. See? I am going to get judged. I'm going to have a whole life review of judgment. That's what I was thinking. I was starting to panic big time. Because here's the deal with those glasses. Yeah. What I saw this time was not at all what I saw the first time. Now I had God's glasses on, so I had a view from heaven. And I got to see what was important, not to mankind, but to God. All right, so here we go. Picture me again, being born that day. Does anybody want to know what I saw? What? What kind of things do you think I saw? Shout it out. What? Parents crying. Okay. Love. You know it. Very first memory I remember seeing is I was like 3 years old with a brownie troop down at the rest home, and I was sitting on elderly woman's lap. She was in a wheelchair by herself, and I was brushing her hair, and my mom couldn't find me, and she was looking through the rooms. Erica, Erica. I was brushing her hair singing, Jesus loves me. No one saw it, but God did. God did. I saw things like rescuing animals. God loved my parents and my family because I've always had a heart for animals, rescuing animals that were hurt. Sticking up for people that were bullied. It was wrong, and I knew it. Listening and supporting when people needed it. Helping an elderly person with their groceries, just over and over events. But guess what was really interesting about this? The commonality here was a couple of things. Number one, most of these things that I was watching were happening when man wasn't looking, or if they were happening, man wasn't paying attention because they didn't think it was important, it was significant. But God showed me that these were the only things that were important, because each and every one of these things involved one thing, the most important thing, and is the answer: love. Love through our words, our thoughts, and our actions for others and ourselves, which was a huge lesson that I had to learn, right? And I was about to learn. So I'm watching these events and I'm understanding for the first time these are the things that are important to God. I am filled with so much unconditional love in each and every one of these events that I'm reliving and seeing that I never wished to be parted from God at this point. You know, there was no doubt in my mind. I knew I was home. Well, again, about the same point of the first time, we're getting ready to get to the day I died at 31. And again, I have this realization and panic come over me that I haven't been judged yet. And it was ingrained in me that I'm going to be judged big time. So it's coming because, I mean, this is the second life review. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. As soon as I had that thought, we get to the end, and God did not judge me. He loved me. He loved me so much, in fact, that he filled me with this unconditional love, again, that I really thought I was going to burst like a balloon. I had nowhere else to put it. It was so amazing. That's what he did. And then God said to me, look. So I looked to my right, and this is the only time that I saw God in any kind of physical manifestation at all. With the glasses on, it protected my eyes enough, but I still couldn't look directly upon it, but I could see. And it was God, and it was his hand, and it was from his fingertips all the way to his shoulder of his right hand. And it was the size of a semi-truck. And I know to watch, and I'm watching, and I watch God, and he swings up his hand. And I'm looking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it kept on going. I couldn't even see his fingertip any further. It was past the highest star. And I'm noticing something. He puts his palm flat, and all of a sudden appear in the palm of his hand this huge rock, massive rock. And I'm looking, I'm thinking, oh my God, that's like the hugest rock I've ever seen. And as soon as I have that realization, I'm looking at the rock. The rock just shoots this brilliant, magnificent light from every orifice of it possible, and I could barely look upon it. It was so bright. And God said, you are the rock. You are the light. The light is of me, and I am with you. And as soon as God said that, he let loose the rock, and we stood together, and we watched this rock fall for what felt like a really long time out in front of us. And when the rock got to right about here, I knew it was important to remember what God said, and I'm repeating it to myself. I am the rock. I am the light. The light is of God, and God is with me. And as soon as I repeated that and had that realization, appeared in front of us the largest body of water you've ever seen. You couldn't even see the borders of this water. And into the water, this rock plunged, and it made a significant impact. And one ripple, only one, came out of it. And it was so powerful, and I stood and I'm watching it, and this one single ripple, it begins to grow until I can't even see past the borders. And God said, mankind is the water, you are the ripple. Like the ripple affects the water, so too does mankind's words, thoughts, and actions affect each other. You see, Erica McKenzie is not a special rock that came back. Each of us are the rock, each and every one of us. If you are living and breathing, I am here to tell you, you are a rock. It's your vehicle. And guess what? You are all the light. The light is of the one that created us. Okay? And each and every one of you, while you're here, you are going to make a ripple, and it is going to affect mankind. But here's the interesting part. God said to me, free will, you get to choose if you let your light shine or not. But you're still going to make a ripple. So you can choose to make that ripple with the light on or the light off. And the light is the connection with God, that love connection. Can you imagine if a bunch of us make that ripple and we choose to have that love connection and the light shine? I saw what happens when we do. It's not about one of us. It's about all of us coming together, and we each shine our light and we make that ripple. That's when we will change everything. And it'll be incredible. Can you imagine being that valuable? All of you? To have that impact? Guess what? You are. It's my job to come back and help share this message. It's not about me. Each and every one of you are that important and valuable. But here's the catch. The next lesson. The gifts. God said, look to your right. So I look. Curtain stars parted. Shelves, bookshelves. They were the most incredible white. I'm just going to say white, but there is not even a name for the color, but it was like this white, glorious, magnificent shelves, bookshelves that were alive. And I remember knowing to look up, and I looked up as far as I could, and the shelves kept on going past the highest star. And I remember God telling me to look out in front of me, and I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, the shelves kept on going past the farthest galaxy. And I remember God telling me to look behind me, so I looked behind me past heaven, and wow, the shelves kept on going. And as soon as I had the realization, these are some really big shelves. I'm like, all of a sudden, do you know what appeared on the shelves? Just say it. What do you guys think? What? Books, names? Okay, those are good. Gifts, presents, like it's Christmas and you go around the tree when you're little and you're like, there's all these gifts. They were all wrapped. And the most interesting part of it was, there were so many gifts on each and every one of these shelves. There was no space available to fit any more gifts, not one area, right? And I'm looking at these and I'm like, oh my gosh, these are like the most amazing wrapped gifts I've ever seen. But it's really weird, like I can't even find one remotely like the other, not one. That many? How is that possible? How is it possible that all of us have our own blueprint on our finger? That's not the same. How many people are on the planet? Wow, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? So I'm looking at these gifts and I'm like, wow, not one is the same. And then God said to me, when each and every one of you are born, I give all of you gifts. And I'm looking and I'm like, oh my God, I wonder which one my gift is. There's like, these are just amazing. And God said to me, Erica, when you were born, He said, I gave you the gift of patience and I gave you the gift of beauty. And it just came out of my mouth. It was my trigger, and I'm like, oh, no, God, that can't be right. So you didn't give me the gift of beauty? Because if you would have gave me that gift, if it really would have came from you, then all the events, the things that I did to myself, to that day that I died, that caused me dying, was because I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think I was beautiful, right? So I didn't think the gift came from Him, because after all, I was judged by mankind for my appearance. So how could that be a good thing? I didn't understand it. And God interrupted those thoughts immediately, and He said, again, Erica, when you were born, I gave you the gift of patience, and I gave you the gift of beauty. And in that moment, I finally knew for the first time what the gift of beauty really meant. You see, the gift of beauty came from within my heart. And the outside was just an exterior. But I had it all backwards because of the way I was treated. I thought this was supposed to be the beauty, and inside was irrelevant. But I finally understood it for the first time. I got it. I couldn't believe it, but it all made sense. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, if I only would have known this, it would have been so much easier to love myself down there, not do those things. And then God said to me, Erica, I have more gifts for each and every one of you. Let's see, where were we? Oh gosh, there's so much I want to tell you guys. Oh my gosh, it's so important. It's so important. So does anybody know, how are we going to get these gifts? How are we supposed to get them? Just shout it out. Faith? Somebody said ask. Ask. Faith, yes, but ask. So God said, I have all of these extra gifts for each and every one of you in life, and all you have to do to receive these gifts is ask. But here's the catch. But then, after you ask, you must be prepared to be quiet and listen to receive those gifts. Okay, it was really hard for me to be quiet and listen. I was told that so many times throughout my whole experience, you guys. It is a very valuable lesson, not just for me, but for each and every one of us. It is so vital to be able to learn how to be quiet and listen to that voice of the one that created us so that we can grow that connection. Because you see, that connection, that love connection is going to help us to access our blueprint and our gifts. And I was taught all of that, and I'm thinking, how does this work? Okay, think about your fingerprint really fast, and what I said, how it's unique, right? It's unique. No one else has it. If you ever doubt it, look at your finger and remember that, okay? That will help you get back to the place of understanding why uniqueness is so important. Your uniqueness is vital for your mission to complete it here. You need it because it's the way you're going to encode your blueprint and access your gifts. Your gifts, what I was doing, I was stifling my gifts. I'm like, oh, I want different gifts because those aren't, I'm not fitting in with those. No. They're very specific for each and every one of you, and they are to be used with your other gifts. Okay? Use those gifts together with the connection, this connection that you've grown, this love connection, and you will be able to access your gifts to the magnitude that they are designed to be used. That's really important, the magnitude they're designed. So I hadn't been doing that because you see how it all starts to unlock the process? God said to me, you must start by learning to love yourself. I loved everybody else, but guess what I wasn't doing? And guess what I know a lot of us are guilty of, not just me, right? Right? So, but the problem is I learned that, wow, it's like, it's vital. We have to learn to love ourselves. If I didn't learn to love myself and love myself first, then I couldn't fully unlock everything and access it. And that's why I wasn't able to complete my mission on earth yet, because I hadn't done that one part. I couldn't access everything. It's important. But it required me to do something. I had to stop judging myself. You see, when judgment is present, there's no love. And love is the answer. And you can't have the right answer if you don't have love, and you're judging yourself. You're not going to have it, right? So I had to learn that I am enough. And I'm not just enough. It is vital that I am me, my unique self, and learn how to love myself. And the way I do that is I have to take time and learn who I am. Remember, in the church, when the pastor asked me what my name was, and he said, "Child, what is your name?" and I didn't know, I had to relearn who I was. That's how bad I suppressed myself. I had to learn who I was. Each and every one of us. It's so important. And there's so much more I could say, but I need to move on because I'm never going to get us to hell. So there was a whole lesson that was important, and I thought, you know what? This is awesome because I know I'm not going back to earth, but if I had to, it would be completely easy for me to love myself for the first time, the way God designed it. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm finally going to get to turn around. Because remember, my back had to be towards heaven this whole time. And I can feel heaven. I know it's amazing, magnificent. I can't wait to turn around and go in. And I'm thinking that's what's going to happen. That's not what happened. I had another lesson, one more lesson. I call it the new earth. I was told to look down in front of me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's earth, right? And I was just admiring the beauty of it. It was amazing and magnificent from this perspective, right? And as I'm admiring this magnificence and getting filled with all this knowledge, all of a sudden I feel something I haven't felt to this point, and it was sadness. It was this tremendous amount of sadness. It was so heavy. I couldn't figure out where is this coming from? I've not felt this yet. And as soon as I had this sadness and I'm looking down at the planet, I hear God ask me a question. God asked me, "He and who believes in me?" And I remember looking down at the planet again, and a Rolodex appearing in my mind, and flipping through the Rolodex of everybody I could think of, starting with my family and then my friends, and then on, of who believed in God. And as I'm going through this Rolodex, I'm looking at the people that I know, and I'm having this appreciation that, wow, this is amazing. Like, I have no desire to go back. I'm totally at peace with this. Now remember, I was a mother. And it was the most important thing to me at that point in my life. My kids were little. And I made a contract with God, by the way, 72 hours before I died, on a plane that was going to crash. And I wrote a contract that said, I will do anything to see my babies again. please God, I will work for you. Right? Remember that. So I'm looking down and I'm like, I don't need to go back. You know why? There's a bridge. There really is a bridge that exists between heaven and earth. And we are always together. Our loved ones, there's no separation. I was at so much peace, and I knew that it was okay. They would be fine and we would be together again in this kind of form soon, but it didn't matter. I could be with them right there on the bridge the whole time, just go across. It's awesome, no separation. And as I'm having this realization, then I was reminded again, ooh, there's this sadness. What is this? And I'm looking. And all of a sudden I see these things shooting off, and I'm like, what is that on the earth? And as I'm focusing, I'm like, oh my God, it's flames. Fire, lifting everywhere off of the planet. There was not a space available. Everything was engulfed in flames. I was terrified. I was beyond terrified. I'm thinking, oh my God, my kids are down there. My family's down there. God, help me. What's going on? Right? As soon as I had that feeling and I'm panicking like crazy, all of a sudden in front of me, do you know what appeared? You know. It was the glasses. The glasses, okay? Yeah. Well, the last time I put them on, what happened? I saw what I couldn't see before. You think I want to put them on? There's flames down there and my family's down there? I'm like, no, I'm not putting them on. Well, that didn't happen. As soon as I'm thinking no, my hands go, they grab the glasses, I put them on my face, and I'm like trying to turn my face away, but no, my face turns. I open my eyes and I could see. And in between the flames, do you know what I saw? What? You guys are really good participants. I like this. And I understand it's okay, but I like this interaction. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I love the connection. I saw human souls. They were so beautiful, powerful. It was so hard to describe. There really isn't a name of a color, but it was like this silvery, white, golden light woven through with like mercury, consistency of mercury, the viscousness, but yet transparent. And they're all lifting off everywhere off the planet, unscathed from the flames, unharmed, with ease, lifting off. And I'm watching them. I'm like, oh my God, Sasa, and I'm watching them. They're all coming up, and they're coming close to us, and they go in behind us on our left into heaven. And all of a sudden, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is great. Okay, thank God. I knew my family was part of that, and I was relieved. And all of a sudden, I felt that sadness one more time, and this time I could barely handle the magnitude of the sadness. And I said to God, oh wow, it's coming from you. God, why are you sad? What's wrong? Look, see? They're okay. Everything's okay. No one's hurt. Right? So we should be happy and relieved. Told me to look again, and I look again, and I've got the glasses on, remember? And I'm focusing, and this time I'm going past the flames, and I'm really focusing on the core of the earth there. And I see the souls that couldn't lift off. Do you know why they couldn't lift off? Because their light was not on. Do you remember the light, the rippling, the lesson I had, right? The rock, the vehicle, a rock. We choose if we want that light to shine or not. But the light was the fuel, the connection that lifted them off, that love connection, right? And I looked at him, I'm like, oh my God, help those souls. They're they can't lift off. God, they're defected, help. God looks at me and he says, Erica, with the gift of life, hand in hand, I give free will. And I said, God, don't you love them too? I didn't get it, right? That's me. I'm like, don't you love them too? Can't you do anything? And he explained to me, he loves not some of us, okay, but each and every one of us, his children, so much that what free will is giving us the gift to be able to choose if we want to receive that love or not, connection. He doesn't force it. And if you're a parent, and that's what I thought, is I thought about my children and how much I love them more than anything. I would die for them. But at some point, now I'm almost an empty nester and they're grown. The hardest thing has been to let them go. But you know what? I love them so much that they need to be able to try. That's how much God loves us. It's amazing. I didn't really understand until that moment. He doesn't force us. But here's the interesting part. I'm going to speed a little bit fast, but we get to the end of that, and I'm watching all the very last of the souls. There were so many of them going in. And when that was finished, it was time for me to finally be able to turn around and to go into heaven, and I was so excited. I couldn't wait. It was just like, okay, I'm so ready. School's been awesome and all that, but I'm ready to go in and be with everyone. And as God and I turned around together and I looked at heaven, and heaven made the size of earth look like a speck of dust. It was so magnificent. And heaven was a planet. It was gold, and it was so alive. It was so huge. It was so wonderful. And I remember just like feeling like I was going to run this race, and I was just going in like it, I was just like, I'm ready. I'm going to go. And God says to me, oh, wait a minute. No, child. No, you work for me now, remember? And I remembered that contract that I had made on that plane that was going to crash. The important things, God is listening, and he saw that, right? He was holding me to it. You work for me now. He said, now listen, you have a new assignment. I learned that when we die, there was a couple things that I saw happen. Each and every one of us were eternal beings, right? We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And when we die, we get a new assignment. And sometimes the new assignment is in heaven. So if I wouldn't have come back, it could have been in heaven, potentially. And sometimes it was other places, and I saw, like the different planets and things. But in my case, my new assignment was down there. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Earth. I am not going back. I am so not going back. I am home. Are you kidding? Like, no way. It's not going to happen. God just laughs with me. And he said, Erica, but before you go, I want to give you 2 more gifts. I'm going to give you the gift of knowledge and wisdom. Do you remember on Earth, before all this happened, how hard I told you guys learning was for me? All the learning disabilities. And I remember rubbing that Shane Martin's head that came to me when he said that, and God and I laughed because he knew. I was like, knowledge? You got to be kidding. Like, this is awesome. I haven't had knowledge my whole life. And he just poured. I could barely handle it. It was like I didn't know what else to do. I laughed at first, and we laughed together, the feeling of just getting all of this knowledge given to me. And he said, now, when you go back, I want you to be quiet and listen to the people that I put into your life. And when you do, you're going to take patience, beauty, knowledge, and wisdom. And when you speak, you will change millions of lives. And before I could even gather my thoughts to speak a word, to argue my case and plea to stay, God pushed me back in a tunnel. And this time the tunnel was completely the opposite of the tunnel that I went up in. This time this tunnel was confining, and I was like this. And my senses that were so heightened and really magnified going up, I couldn't use them all of a sudden. I couldn't see. I couldn't hear. I couldn't feel. I couldn't move. And I was alone. I noticed something. I didn't feel that connection with God, that love connection for the first time this whole experience. And as I had that understanding, I was getting slower and slower in the tunnel, and all of a sudden I come to a stop. And the first thought in my mind was, you got to be kidding me. I defected the tunnel. Like, of course I did. I'm like, I'm stuck somewhere between heaven and earth. I don't know how to get back down, and God told me to do this job, and now I can't. What the heck, Erica, seriously? So I'm panicking, and then all of a sudden I hear this really faint noise. It was like this buzzing noise, white noise. When I grew up at midnight, the American flag on the TV, and then it would go to white screen. Shh. Okay, that was the noise, best way for me to describe it. So I'm like, okay, what the heck? I don't know what it is because I can't see, but it's the only senses that it's working, so I'm going to go with it. I'm going to try to pay attention as best as I can so I can get help and get undefected and get back down. The sooner I start my job, the sooner I can get back to heaven, right? So I'm listening to the noise, and as I'm listening to the noise, I'm noticing the noise is getting louder, and as it's getting louder, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so loud. It's like pulling me, and as I'm noticing it's pulling me, it completely sucked me out of the tunnel, put me onto my back flat, and I'm floating to my left. I can't see still, but I can hear this noise, and it's pulling me, and then eventually I stop, and I'm just like hovering in this space. And wow, this is really interesting. All of a sudden, this white noise, it changes to this, it's like this garbled muffling, but it's really loud. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what's weird? That sounds like people. I'm like, oh my God, like if it is people. I'm like, I can't understand. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, all these people were having conversations at once. If you're in a convention center of, thousands of people, and you can't even hear your own conversation going on because everybody's trying to talk at the same time, that's what it was. And as soon as I had the realization, oh my gosh, these are people having conversations, I was like, oh my gosh, these are people speaking all these different languages. And where I grew up, we didn't have foreign language, so I didn't know a foreign language. But guess what? I totally knew every foreign language there was. I understood every conversation, and in that moment there was one commonality. Does anybody want to know what it was of all the conversations that were going on? Okay, there was no love present. So there was everything from hatred, anger, self-loathing, gossip, slander, sadness that's overwhelming, just every emotion you can imagine where love isn't present, happening at once. And as soon as I had this realization, the light in me turned on because I knew where I was. I was at the edge of hell. And all of a sudden, it was all dark, right? And I'm the only one my light's on? Oh yeah, well they all saw that, of course. And when my light went on, I could see them. And I was just barely hovering, and they could reach me. And they started pulling. I could feel each one of their fingers all over every inch of my body, and they were pulling me down. They wanted the light. And as they were pulling me down, it was completely draining my life force out of my body. And I was terrified. I was terrified because I knew just even more of a second of feeling that, I would have no energy to even get out of the situation. I panicked, and the only thing I could think was to cry out to God, help me, I love you. That was it. You know what that did? It re-established that connection that I'm talking about. That's all it took, that desire to have that love connection. And all of a sudden, all of the hands started reluctantly lifting off of me, and it felt like it took forever. And I started raising up when the very last finger left my body, high enough so that they couldn't reach me. And I start floating back out of that place slowly. And as I'm leaving that place, I had a mix of emotions. I was completely relieved and thankful to God. But here's me at the same time. I'm always hoping everybody's okay and everything. I'm like, God, can't we help them too? Because I could feel their hearts. And I knew they weren't bad people, right? And God said to me, Erica, again, it's free will. Do you know what God told me? This was so interesting to me because I was not raised to believe this. I was raised to believe that when you died, you were judged by God. And if you were a sinner, you went to hell. So I knew I should be in hell, right? This didn't make sense. I just got out of there. I don't know. And everything I had just learned, right, in heaven. And now God's saying free will. And what God told me was, do you know how those people got there? Well, yeah, you put them there, God, right? You put them there. They were sinners. No. It's not what I was told. Do you guys know how they got there? Anybody? Yes, they did. So choosing to not have that connection, just as unique as our fingerprints, our blueprints, right, was different for everyone. There's different reasons why those people chose not to have that connection. But here's the most amazing part. I was raised to believe that once you died, that was it. You had until then. And if you didn't make that decision, to choose God, that was the expiration. That was it. Too bad. But God told me that those people had the ability to get out anytime. But do you know how they had to get out? Remember when I wanted to take them, I'm like, let them follow the light. Let me help them, please. And he said I couldn't do it as much as I cared. See, with that gift of life, the very special thing and why you're so valuable, he gives not some of us, right, but each of us the ability. No one can make that decision for you but you. But you have to choose to want to have that connection. You have to do the work. No one can do it for you. So each one of those people that were there, they had to choose to have that connection. It was as simple as desiring that love with God. And they could get out. Anytime. There was no expiration. We were eternal beings. There was no time. Time did not exist like it does here. So I was really sad, but at the same time I had a lot of peace because I finally understood. I understood the way it is, And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. I finally get back to the tunnel, and I'm going down the tunnel again. I was so drained from them sucking the life force out of me that I remember just wanting to just rest for a second and pause. What happened was that connection with God again became separated. The connection was separated. I would stop in the tunnel, I would hear the noise, and I knew what that meant the next time I would go out. So what God was teaching me, it was like this whole 31 years of going back down, but learning for me, I had to really learn how to grow this connection. I'd forgotten, because I had stifled it for so many years before I died. He was teaching me how to, grow this connection again. So while it was very tedious and taxing, it sounds like, really it wasn't. It was an awesome, beautiful opportunity, because I'm a hands-on learner, and God knew that with everything he did with me. And that was another part of it. It was amazing. And I finally get back down to earth, and I'm on the ceiling of the emergency room, and I'm looking at my body, and my husband was crying over my body, and I'm thinking, okay, I thought I could do this. I know I'm supposed to, but there's no way it's going to happen. Because number one, I can't fit back into that body. I can't. I mean, it's like confining. How am I going to even do that? Half of me going in? I don't even get it. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. I can't do it. I quit. Yeah, that didn't happen. You don't get to quit when you work for him. You just don't have a choice. You're going to do it the easy or the hard way. As soon as I said no, I felt this big magnet on my back, and it sucked me from on this side, looking over myself, over to another little area where there was a gurney, and no one was in this room, and it planted my butt down on the gurney, and 3 angels that were nurses, and they were so cute. They looked like little, really nice grandmas, and they came really close to me, and they looked at me, and they said, shh, be quiet and listen, child. You will go back into that body, and you know what? It's going to hurt. Like nothing you've ever been through, everything you're getting ready to go through, it's not going to be easy. But you're the rock. You're the light. The light is of the one that created you. You can do this. God loves you, Before I could even argue my case with those 3, I felt that magnet suck my back up to the ceiling and shove me over. I'm looking at my body. I got stuffed back down into there. I woke up, and God, I couldn't wait to talk about everything that just happened to me, where I'd been. I was so excited. I didn't have a voice. I was really sick, and so I was like in and out of consciousness. And the next morning I woke, my attending physician came in, and he said, oh, good morning, Mrs. McKenzie. I'm glad you're with us. And I'm thinking, oh, the doctor's coming in. He's going to start this assessment. And all of a sudden, I feel like I'm going to throw up. I can't even control it. And I'm looking all over because I'm by myself in the room, and there's that pink bedpan. And I go to throw up in it, and it was my voice. It came out uncontrollably. And I'm like, doctor, oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. I've just been to heaven. I've been with God. Sit down, please. I got to tell you. Don't even bother taking my blood pressure. I mean, the poor guy, he looked like one of those thermometers, weather thermometers. All the color just drained from his face. He didn't do the assessment. I didn't get the blood pressure cuff on it. He was out of there. He didn't even listen. He was just like, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, come back. But the nurse had been charting on me in the hall. The door was open, so she had heard the whole thing that had transpired. She comes in, and she's cute little grandma again. She sits down by me, and she says, child, shh, be quiet and listen. I'm telling you, this is a huge lesson for all of us. I heard everything that you said to that doctor, you see. And do you know, I believe you. And everything that happened is really important, but you must learn when to be quiet and when to speak. She said, you see, I've worked for that doctor for 7 years. And I'm so sorry that the first person that you tried to tell about your experience in heaven to God was an atheist. And I could lose my job for telling you that, but she said, I need you to know what's going on here. And I'm thinking, okay, you gotta be kidding me. I'm so not feeling good, I can't get up and hightail it out. And unlike my friend, Dr. Alan Huguenot, if you heard him speak, he was lucky, see, because he almost got checked into the mental facility, and one of his friends rescued him in the wheelchair and got him out the back door. Okay, I didn't have a friend like that. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. That's not nice. So, 2 hours later, that doctor comes back with my husband. And he said, you know what, Miss McKenzie, it's going to be okay. Now, I want you to rest assured I've had a really great conversation with your husband and your family, and even though we figured out that you've never had a mental disorder in your whole life, you've been healthy, and technically, well, you're 31, you're too old for an late onset of bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, no family history of it, you're in that less than 1%. That's what you have. And your husband loves you so much that when I told him the best psychiatric facility in the country has one bed available, states and states away, and I had little kids, right? He said yes, because he knows that I know I am the professional, and since you don't know what's good for you, he's going to let you go do that. I'm like, oh my God. See what happens when you don't tell the truth and you hide stuff? It comes out. You can't keep it under the carpet. I had hid the secret that I was on those diet pills for 9 years. I'm like desperate. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that I didn't tell you, Derek, but here's the thing. I've been taking these diet pills. Please call this doctor. Please, I need you guys to understand. You know, what's happened to my body. Listen to me. I need to detox. That's all I need. Please don't say I'm not crazy. This happened. Give me a chance. But you know what? The doctor's always right. Don't you guys know that? Now, I have a lot of very good friends that are doctors, just so you know. I'm not putting all doctors down, but we're all human at the end of the day. Are we all always right? I don't know. I'll let you guys answer that. Thank you guys so much for coming. Can I just say one more thing, and then you can cut me off? I'm sorry. It'll be really fast. I just want you guys all to know. I was sent back because that's how important you guys are. I want you to know that each and every one of you are so important. You matter. You are all valuable. And guess what? Your uniqueness is your value. And your value, that's your contribution here on your earthly journey. And each and every one of you are loved. So please know that. Please. Because you are.